Do we need like a theme song?
Dude, we need a theme song.
This
yeah.
is where we put the theme song,
Yeah.
guys.
Insert the
future.
theme song here.
Yep.
All right. You got that? You got that, editors?
Are you listening right now?
Throw back 10 minutes ago to when CJ said I'm not editing this at all.
All right, here we go. This is the start of our first podcast. It's called Overrated, and we're basically just gonna review some movies here. My name is Sujay.
I'm Girish.
My name is Kellyanne.
I'm Will.
Awesome. And now we're gonna talk about Dead Poet Society now. So we watched this recently, Will, Kellyanne, and I, and it was about 2 weeks ago. But I think the first time I saw it, Girish wasn't there. We didn't invite him. But I think the first time I watched it was in high school. Was that when you watched it first time too?
Yeah, I watched it high school sophomore year, I think, as part of an English project. So that was fun.
Yeah, Kellyanne watched it for the first time with us. But Will, did you see it in high school too?
Yes, I also saw it in high school. I don't remember the year because I'm not weird like Girish.
Yeah, well, we watched it in English class. I forgot why we watched it. Was it actually related to anything, or just because it was English class?
I thought we watched it because it had something to do with the nihilistic themes and some shit like that about how we view the world.
A genius.
No, but it was actually super deep because I think the unit we were learning about was something about how the theme of going, because it was, I don't know, it was relating to how they were in a boarding school. It had Robin Williams in it, so that's why they watched it. The plot, yeah. I watched it for the plot, so.
Okay, I just remember I think we watched it during AP exams, and I was only there the first day of the AP exams, because I watched it the first day, and then when they were finishing it the second day, I had to go to an AP exam, so I missed it, and I ended up not finishing the movie until that weekend. So to me, it was just a bunch of kids digging around, reading poetry, and I did not know any of the second half of that movie was coming. Kellyanne, what did you think first time?
So because I watched it last week for the first time, I guess I was super shocked, but didn't react because by that point I was checked out of the movie. But I definitely wasn't expecting it because everyone talks about what a classic it is, and just after the twist, that doesn't seem like something that people would regard as a classic. I feel like that's almost taboo what happened. I don't know if we're alluding to it, or can we talk about
Yeah,
that?
so before we start this, we should have probably said that this is a spoiler podcast. So if you haven't seen the movie,
This
go
movie
watch
came
the.
out 30 years
Yeah,
ago.
if you haven't seen it, first off, what are you doing? This is an old movie, but full disclosure, go watch that movie now, and then you'll be up to date on the shit we're talking about right now.
No, yeah, actually it was 1989, so it's actually 30 years to this year. All right, we're going to get into some categories then. The first one we have is Score It. We're all going to go around, give our personal rating of the movie, and try to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score. So I thought it was pretty good. I gave it an 83. Yeah, out of 100.
All right, so out of 100, if you guys know me, I'm pretty shit at being a movie critic, in that I'm not critical at all. I'll rate everything really high, but for trying to do this, make it stand in what I think the audience would rate it, and looking more at a critical perspective, given the fact that it was pretty old, it has some good actors, good themes, I'd probably put it at about a 90.
I also really like the movie. Again, with like Girish said, with how old it was, I give it a lot more credit than I would a movie now. I'd probably give it an 85. Not really sure where I'm going to go from here because I've never ranked a movie before, but 85, yeah.
Kellyanne?
So I guess my personal rating, we're doing personal first, right?
Yeah, personal
Okay,
first.
my personal rating would be, I don't know, a 70. It was fine to me. And it's not a failing grade, but I thought it wasn't impressive.
Girish is so pissed. Girish always has the positive opinion about stuff, and Kellyanne's more on the negative side, so.
Kellyanne defines the negative side.
All right. And now we're all gonna go around and guess the Rotten Tomatoes score. So I looked it up and I wrote it down. I guessed though before I looked it up. So my guess was 87.
I'm gonna guess Rotten Tomatoes is pretty harsh, so I'm gonna say an 83.
I'll go 80.
92.
Wow. Okay. So the actual Rotten Tomatoes score, I think Girish was the closest. It was 84% on the tomato meter, but the audience score was 92%. So, yeah, pretty good. I mean, so this movie won 20 awards, including an Oscar for Best Writing, Screenplay written directly for the screen, and had nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor in a Leading Role, Robin Williams.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, yes. So, yeah. I guess now we can move to our next categories, favorite scenes and quotes. I'm kind of go like chronologically with this. If you think of something that like happened before the next one I'm about to say, just go ahead and like butt in. But I think the first one, my favorite, was like when they introduced Keating, like in his introduction scene with the whole carpe diem thing. He says, "Carpe diem, seize the day, boys, make your lives extraordinary." And this is also where they introduced the whole "Oh Captain, my Captain" thing. And both carpe diem and "Oh Captain, my Captain" are like central things that they keep talking about throughout the movie. Like whenever any of the characters are about to do something stupid or like they want to like live their lives, I guess they say carpe diem. And of course the last scene with "Oh Captain, my Captain." Any of you guys also think about that?
Like particularly the carpe diem stuff. I'd probably say yeah, that's a good scene. I know for me, I watched it a while ago because I didn't really watch it with you guys. So I would say the stuff that I say is stuff that really stuck for a long time. Obviously, the Captain My Captain scene is probably like my favorite one because that's like the main one. And I'll get to that when we get to it chronologically. But the carpe diem stuff, don't remember much about it. But no, but thinking about that carpe diem stuff, I will say one of the scenes that I remember very well was the whole cave thing. I don't know if that's. Yeah. Were you gonna get to that? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was one thing for me, the cave scene, because like. First off, like, it's pretty funny. It's like a funny scene in general. But on top of that, I thought it really captured the whole carpe diem thing that they were going for, and really helped set up some of the stuff later in the movie. And also, I think it started. I haven't seen it well, but it's what caused the main. It like what started the main thing, right?
Yeah, so the cave scene is basically like their first Dead Poets Society meeting, and they all go into the cave, and like it's kind of stupid because like it's exactly the kind of things that we would do. Like it's just like a bunch of kids like dicking around in the cave, and one guy's like, "Hey, weren't we supposed to talk about poetry?" And then like the guy like Charlie or whatever, like he pulls out some porn and like some snacks and stuff, and like they're kind of just messing around. But I read down, yeah, like that's honestly what he does. He just pulls out a porno magazine. But like, yeah, he actually wrote a poem too, like on the back of the porno. But like the joke I think is that like no one's like paying attention to his poem because he's holding it in front of porn. But one of the quotes that I really liked from that, I wrote it down, it was like, "I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately. I want to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to put it to rout all that it was not life, and not when I had come to die, discover that I had not lived." I remember when we heard this in the movie, I turned to Will and Kellyanne, and I'm like, he's sucking all the marrow out of life. It's like sucking the dick of life, taking all the cum out of the dick of life.
It's a very eloquent way to say like that, or like YOLO, like you only live once, so you better live it up. But like, so I feel like everything after the movie at this point had like devolved. Like this was like the peak way of saying what they wanted to say. Like the peak of the point of the movie is to say like do everything to its highest potential and like do it the best way you can. And then from that point forward, every single iteration of like that point became more and more diluted. So like the point of the movie was, you know, do everything the best way you can and like have fun with it. And then they just start doing like stupid stuff. And like, so like that was a meaningful scene and I really liked it, and the way it was worded was so eloquent. But from that point forward, I was like, I just felt like their actions were not lining up with like the complete spirit of that sentiment.
For me, like the kids, so this was like a really preppy boarding school with like super strict teachers, and the parents expected like amazing things from their kids, and these were like the kids that never got to have fun when they were growing up. I mean, they still are growing up, and they're clearly not having much fun there. And I think a lot, I don't know, yeah, I think a lot of people like our age and younger can relate to that probably, at least in some way. And when he says all this stuff like seize the day and I don't know, like YOLO nowadays, it's like for them doing stupid childish things is something different. Like something that they never would have thought of doing before he came along, and something they just didn't think they could do before he came. And so like I do see it as like a step in the right direction for them. And yeah, I just like, if you put yourself in the shoes of those kids and think about, you know, how strict their lives had been up to that point, I think that there's no small thing to just see them sticking around.
Yeah, it's honestly refreshing to see them like being like kids and not like, because I like heard about this like when they were like filming this, they actually had the kids like live together like in a boarding school, like they live together, and to kind of like put them in the mindset that they're like students. And so it was pretty cool how they did it. Obviously it turned out well because like they ended up bonding a lot. and I think the casting like definitely like the cast all just bonded over that.
Yeah, there was chemistry for sure.
Okay, next scene. I said basically anytime like Keating is talking to the class, like I just really like how he's how Robin Williams like just kind of captures the whole class, and like he's not just like lecturing, I guess, like he's actually like engaging them and like trying to make it enjoyable for them. Some of the quotes that I said was that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be? That's like a
That's
very
my
big
favorite.
point. Yeah.
I actually have something about that. So you kind of reminded me why we watched this in English. This was like the last thing we watched, and so yeah, he says, "What will your verse be?" And this was like the last day of class. I remember, because then our teacher went around and she was like, "All right, guys, what will your verse be?" And we went in a circle. We all wanted to say like, "What do we want to do in life?" And it was like sophomore year, junior year, something like that. But it was like we were all like, "Oh damn, like what do you mean like later in life? Like I haven't thought that far ahead." And so I don't remember many people's quotes, but I kind of remember mine.
That's good.
And so yeah, I think I said something like I said
Girish was like, I want to be a part of a super mediocre startup podcast. That
yeah.
reviews movies
I
just
said
like this one.
no, but I think I said something like along the lines of like it was something super innocent because we had to say it was in front of the teacher, but I was like, yeah, like I want to go on and like make a difference in the world, you know. And I was like, I don't care where I go to college, and I was like, I swear to God, but no, but it was something along those lines, and I think that was why we watched the movie in class, and I also. It's funny because now thinking about it, if my goals have changed, I really don't know.
think it felt kind of like a summarization of what senior years of anything feel like, or like the end of year education feels like. All professors, teachers, like they're all like, now go think about what you want to do in the world and make a difference. So it was like very like it felt significant, and I liked that part, I guess, because it makes you think and reflect, and like we're all college students, so it's still relevant that we should think about like where our lives are going from here. But and then it makes you think of like the teachers or professors who have done that for you in the past. Like I'm sure everyone's had that teacher who like made them feel really good about like the world. Like I had an agri-science, which is like an agriculture teacher who like really inspired me. And it's like totally out there and not something that I'm interested in now, but like it felt important because she was teaching it. And so like that's what Robin Williams was, and that was like fun to watch and remember from high school for me.
Yeah, shout out to Miss McGee if you're listening to this. Probably one of my favorite teachers.
You're not.
Yeah. But going back to what Kellyanne said, something like that. Yeah, probably one of the best teachers. Like she really was the one where probably the first class I took. Growing up, and I was like super like I need to get really good grades on all my exams and stuff, and that was really the first class I took. When I took the final, I didn't know what I got, and I was like, I'm fine with whatever I got, because that class was probably one of the most fun things I've had, and it was just such a great experience that it was the first time I was more focused on just learning instead of the number that I got at the end. And I think Robin Williams captures that really nice.
All right. Yeah. Will, you have any teachers that were especially inspirational for you? Yeah, no, I was gonna say mine was Mr. Myers. Mr. Myers, if you're listening to this, you were an inspirational teacher for me. Mr. Myers was our band teacher, and I'm pretty sure none of us play our instrument anymore. So, so like really, the music isn't what stayed with us. But yeah, he was definitely super cool, and like he was, I guess, my Mr. Keating. So, Will.
I definitely agree with that. Besides him, I'd probably go Mr. Basham. My senior year astronomy teacher, and he was like the science bowl like teacher representative for that, and just a super cool guy.
All right, my last scene is at the end of the movie. Does anyone have anything before that? Okay, yeah. So mine was the whole like I don't say that like Neil's suicide is my favorite scene, but like the scene afterwards, like when all of the boys like come to like Todd and they're like, hey, Neil's dead, and like it's just a really emotional scene, like that part especially, like because Neil's suicide is like it's a good impactful scene, but like I honestly just do not like Neil's dad in that scene. Like he just seems like he's very overacting, and he's just very like, oh no, my son. like that's legit what he says. He's like, oh, my beautiful son. Like he doesn't sound like he has any emotion at all, his mom is what actually kills me. Like his mom is like, she's like sobbing and she's like, he's okay, he's okay, he's okay, he's okay, and like it's so like painful to watch. But like the scene right after that where like they talk about Todd and like they go and like they're out in the snow, like that was an actual like powerful scene. I heard about this as well, that they pulled Neil's actor out. They filmed this entire movie chronologically. So Neil's actor, the day they filmed after his like suicide scene, he just left the set, and like the boys didn't like know that. So it was like he was actually gone. So like they didn't say goodbye or anything. A director definitely made some good calls like on how to like prepare the actors for what they're gonna do.
I was just wondering if like method acting or acting like that, where like the actors were put in a position that was similar to that of the characters, was common at the time, because I would like kind of think it wasn't. I don't know why. I just like don't know anything about filmmaking in the 80s, but it seems like it would have been progressive.
I know like in terms of method acting kind of stuff, I wouldn't know if you say like the exact kind of like they pulled a guy out, but like to get in character, is that what you mean kind of? Because I know to like get in character for a scene, not surprise or stuff like that, but I do know a couple movies where actors like to get in character. So like, okay, I know for Suicide Squad, just this is the one I know off the top of my head because I don't know why. Jared Leto played Joker, as we all know and love, and Joker's not like he's not a normal guy, so you have to get in character to be mental, and he's also Harley Quinn's boyfriend. So I think I read something where he would send her a dead rat in the mail because like that's how he pictured the relationship would be, and she didn't know obviously, and she obviously saw it and was like, "The hell," but that's something similar, you know? Maybe if you mean like getting in character and stuff like that, or like between actors, like is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean like I think you mean like on a personal level, like that's what the actor chooses to do, but like this was like the actors didn't choose this, like the director like made this decision for them, so that he was like he's saying like this is how we're gonna approach this, and this is probably gonna help your acting because you'll be bonding and then having like actual reactions to stuff that's happening, but it's definitely in a unique way. All right, keep going. Does anyone have any other best scenes you want to talk about?
I think I mentioned this earlier, but the "Oh Captain, My Captain" scene is actually an excerpt. I can't remember if Will and Sujay and I went to the same high school, so in case that isn't clear, fuck Kellyanne, she did not. But so we watched the "Oh Captain and Captain," like I said, in English class, and so obviously that's probably that's my favorite scene in the whole movie. It's just emotional, captures everything after all they've been through. It's just a really powerful moment. But yeah, so in our English class, we had two English teachers, not the one I had, but his name was Mr. Kesterson, I think. No, Carrington. Yeah, Mr. Carrington. And so I didn't have him, but my year was the last year he taught, and he got offered at another school. And so the semester was ending. Everyone had seen the movie at this point. And I remember I saw the video because like I wasn't in the class, but Twitter, whatever. But so basically he was leaving, and it wasn't his last day, I think, so to say, but it was very close to the end of the semester. And someone stood on their desk and said, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," and then everyone in the class did it, like just like the movie. And he started crying, and I was like, that's how you know the concept of everything is just it's all emotional, and like I think it gives a different depth to it when you see it happen in real life, you know? And obviously we had a teacher leaving. We didn't have anything that serious as happened in the movie, but it really helps put stuff into perspective, you know? I don't know if Will or Sujay had these teachers.
I don't think we did, but that's the point. Like, okay, I think the "Oh Captain, My Captain" thing obviously gets twisted because it's not like that they were saying he's leaving and they were giving him a tribute or something. It's that they were standing up for the fact that like he was their teacher and like the school wronged him, and like they were standing up for him. They weren't really just like giving him like a good farewell. They were saying like,
yeah, it was like a fuck you to the
yeah,
principal.
it was legit like a fuck you to the professor, like the head of the school or whatever. Yeah.
It's not that serious.
But yeah.
Well, I feel like that goes along with my point about the movie, and I'm the only one here who has this opinion, but like that the entire point was like kind of misconstrued, because what Sujay's saying is true. Like the whole point of it was fuck you to the dean, like this teacher's getting wronged, but like, and then people in real life are seeing it as like oh, goodbye, like I'm going to honor your tenure here. So then that for me is like that's just like a bigger example of what I didn't like about the movie, in that the whole time he was saying carpe diem, like people were just misconstruing it. But Will's point earlier about like the context of them having been stifled their whole lives, like, is not something I thought about.
I think that it was more of like, well, when the first kid stood up, it was, and like, so Robin Williams was leaving, or Mr. Keating was leaving, and I think that when the kid stood up and said, "Oh, Captain, my captain," it was sort of like closure for him, and like them telling him like, "We're not gonna forget about you. Like you didn't just," because no one wants like he could have walked out that door and those kids would have been sitting there not saying anything. He walks out the door and he has no idea if like the entire however long he just spent there doing all that had any impact other than the fact that a kid killed himself, you know? And I think that them standing up and saying, "Oh, Captain, my captain," was closure for him, knowing that they're not going to forget what he did for them and they're not going to go back to being who they were. Even though he's gone, he definitely left a mark on them. And I think that's important. I think that's some good closure for the whole movie.
Yeah, that's a good point, honestly. We talked about this like right after we watched the movie, but can we talk about how he walked into the middle of his own class? Like he knew they were gonna be there, but like
he walked in like, what
Yeah,
are you
like,
guys doing here? Can I just go into my office right
Yeah,
now?
can I get
And
my
the team
stuff?
was like, sure, that seems fine. Like,
Yeah,
okay, buddy.
and he's like, "Leave, Mr. Keating," and he's like, "Okay, I just can't get my stuff." I mean,
I feel like maybe he went in during class because he wanted the closure, and he was maybe like in the back of his mind at least maybe hoping that like one of his kids would say something to him.
he wanted the attention. Like he
Yeah,
wanted,
I mean,
wanted someone to say something.
Imagine
Damn well what he was
imagine being in that school for as long as he was and doing all that he tried to do for the students and being forced to leave, only knowing that again one of the kids that you taught killed himself, and that was your only impact.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
Also, he wasn't there a long time. That was his first year teaching.
Well, but he had gone there like as a student. But
Yeah,
like
true.
there is like willful suspension of disbelief in movies. Like you like to advance the plot, they had to do that. But also, like he was a romantic guy in the way that he thought and the way that he communicated with kids. Yeah, so it was totally, I guess, believable that he could have done that just to be like to touch his students one more time or to like see them or to be nostalgic. Like maybe I would have done it, but just like now you don't just
Kellyanne's one of those students who like sat down and did not want to stand up on their desk.
Kellyanne, did you bring an apple to your teacher every day?
Shut the fuck up. It's just like I don't think you would do that now because I'm pretty sure a principal would be like this shit's about to get out of hand. Like you can't do this.
Anyone else have any scenes? Otherwise, we'll keep it going. The next category we have is best plot line. So there are a couple plot lines in this movie. There's obviously the Keating thing. There's Neil's whole thing where he wants to be an actor. There's Todd dealing with his like confidence issues.
Talk about the rapey guy.
Oh my god. Okay, so I know Kellyanne's gonna talk about this later, and like the whole Knox plot line. That's another big thing. We'll start with best plot lines and go from there. My favorite was anything with Keating. Like I said before, like him and the students' relationships were basically just like any interaction between the two was like was really cool to see. I also like Todd. Like basically the character, like his whole storyline is pretty cool. The next category is best character development. So I'm gonna lump these two together. Todd is like I want to say the main character of this story because like it's all through his eyes. And he may not be like the most like outspoken person, but like I really like his character development through the entire thing. He goes from not saying a word in class to kind of freestyling that poem, and like at the end of the movie, he's the one that stands up for Mr. Keating. So I think Todd has the best character development. You guys have any ideas on plot and or character development?
Like Todd definitely has the best arc, like for sure, because he comes from not speaking, like you said, and then having this like emotional thing. Like he was honestly the most emotional guy in the whole movie. I felt like not actually most emotional, but he had the most emotional scene aside from the suicide, where he was like in front of the class and he was the only one who like got in his feelings and was unabashedly like vulnerable. So I think that was like one display of really good character development. But like I honestly felt like the rest of the movie, like none of the other characters were developed quite like that. I mean, maybe Neil was because, you know, he was fully realized as a person like from beginning to end. But aside from that, like those two were the ones that like struck me.
Yeah, I said Todd was like the main character because it's kind of like his journey through the entire thing. but Neil is definitely like the secondary, and then like Mr. Keating, of course, is like up there.
Well, was he developed? Because he was like static the whole time. I mean, he played the same role. He was
Yeah.
the same guy beginning to end.
He was supposed to be like the constant, the teacher, and like you definitely see like things like he experiences. Like he doesn't have that much like growth or anything, just because he's an adult and like nothing changes him at this point. But you can definitely see at the end after like Neil commits suicide that he's like super shook. Like he definitely has like undergone, like he's thinking about like what he did, like if it was his fault. There's like that one scene, I can't remember if like he has any like dialogue or anything, but I'm pretty sure it's just him like in his office, and he like looks at like some like the playbill, I think, from Neil's play, and he starts crying, and that's a pretty like impactful scene.
Yeah, so like I said, it's been a while since I watched this movie, so yeah, my definite. Are we lumping the character thing into this? Yeah, okay. So, definite Todd probably best character development by far. I think we've all covered the main reasons why he's actually has the best. First off, he has actual development, which is why I wouldn't say Keating, because Robin Williams kind of steals the show in every movie he's in. But character development wise, yeah, for sure, Todd. Just because, yeah, he really does grow as an individual, kind of captures all the themes of the entire movie. In terms of plot line, I'm gonna have to say Keating's plot line, which is it's not the main plot line. I think it's not the main plot line because I think Neil is kind of the main character other than Todd, because Todd's kind of just like Todd is the audience, kind of. I don't know, but Keating I feel like has the best plot line just because, in a way, he kind of embodies stuff from a different perspective in that he's the teacher, and his whole plot line is he's trying to bring change about the school, and I think that was a different way to look at it, and in the end he succeeds because everyone stands up for him, and I thought that was a cool plot line to see everyone changing from his lessons. And I guess because like if I say one specific person, I feel like that's one plot line, but by saying Keating, that kind of puts the whole Dead Poet Society, because they all took what they needed from his lesson, but in the end he got his point across, and everyone in the end he kind of had the last laugh even though he got fired. But
I get like you leave the movie thinking about remembering Keating the most. I feel like, I mean, he's a great actor and this was a great role of his, but then I feel like, at least for me, the plot line that sticks, or the thing that happens that everyone I feel like should remember, is the death, the suicide. So for me, the most compelling plot line is the one that like leaves you remembering the point of the movie, and it was, Neil killing himself, and then that makes you think about what the whole thing's all been about. So for me, that's the most compelling plot line because that's the one that sticks with you.
Yeah, I think that I think Todd is like to me he's like the representation of exactly how you would want someone to take all that Keating is giving the kids, and like he's the perfect sort of character development. But I think that without Neil and his suicide, like that Todd wouldn't have finished his development. Like
The point's not made.
yeah, the suicide is what I think pushes Todd to be the guy who ends up saying, "Oh, Captain, my captain," and like in the end of the movie, he's the guy who's developed the most. And if that hadn't happened, I think he wouldn't have done that. None of them quite would have pushed all the way through. I don't know how to better say that, but yeah, like it wouldn't have completely finished the development of any of the characters if that hadn't happened. So
No, yeah, I was gonna say like that's a good point that like I think Todd is supposed to represent Keating's like best case scenario, and Neil's like his worst. Like those are the two students that like are kind of like they focus on the story on, and like Todd's like actually grown from this, but Neil, like, it did not go his way obviously, but like him, especially like there's another guy, Charlie Nwanda. He kind of like takes like Keating's like carpe diem thing to like the next level, and like Keating tells him like you're being stupid. Like there's a difference between like living life and like being like stupid. But yeah, like I definitely think that that's a good point though, that Neil kind of completes Todd's character arc.
Going back to what you said about the best case scenario, if based on what you just said about Charlie, would you believe that that's actually the worst case scenario? Because the thing with Neil is, because Neil took what Keating said. He said, yeah, like I'm gonna do it, but like it just didn't work out for him because the whole like he had other circumstances and stuff. But I would say, like I think Charlie's like the worst case scenario in terms that he just took the message the completely wrong way. Neil got the message, like for sure. It just didn't work out for him. But I think Charlie's the worst case scenario for Keating in that he got the wrong, like in fact the opposite of what he wanted him to do.
I definitely don't agree because the worst case is that
I definitely do not agree.
the worst case is that you kill yourself or you give up or like, I mean, suicide is not giving up, but that's like kind of what it is. I don't want to
bold take, Kelly.
No, I just need to say that
Cut this part out.
you know, like when kids are young, I definitely cut it out. You know, when kids are young and they think
Kelly
that
is about to give a super hot take
they
right now.
think
What
everything
it?
is black and white, and so it's like, oh, death penalty, like they fucked up really bad, they killed people, they deserve to die. And then when you get older, you realize that there's grays and like, so I just feel like the way Neil took it was that black and white, like if I can't do everything the way I want to do it, then I'm just gonna fucking kill myself, or like if it can't happen now, like whatever, I'm out. So I don't know, like it just struck me wrong. That's the worst case.
So the night
To
that
follow up?
the night that Neil killed himself, he was just told that he was basically gonna have to give up his entire life.
Signed off, yeah.
And like, I mean, with everything that, all of the emotion that had been built up into him, and like to face 10 years of, I mean, like basically torture. I mean, you know, like he's signing his life away, and it's not even his choice. He's not signing it away. His dad's signing it away.
Right.
It's just like, I don't personally, I don't think that is a worst case scenario. I don't think that's why he's in the movie. I don't think he's there to represent the worst case scenario. I think he's there because in any scenario where a point is going to be made, you have to have the most drastic situation. I don't mean the worst situation. I just mean the one that, the eye-opening situation, the one, it just needs to happen. Something to the extreme needs to happen for any change to be made. And I think that he plays that role. I like, for him to call him the worst case scenario would be blaming Keating for his death, and I don't think that's what I would
I'm not
do.
saying like he's like Keating, like it was Keating's mistake that it happened, but I think it's like it's just it happened to happen like that. That he like his circumstances like set him up to just like not be able to benefit from Keating's teachings the way that Todd did. But yeah. All right, we're going to keep it going with the categories. The next one I have is sequel or prequel. Could this movie have a sequel or prequel? So I said a sequel is pretty impossible just given how the story ended. The kids are kind of like independent now. They've kind of finished theirs. Like, I don't know what you talk about with them anymore. I guess you could follow Mr. Keating to his next job. But I did say that this movie could have a prequel. Could a possible prequel with Keating as when he was going to the school and how he started the original Dead Poets Society? What do you think?
Yeah, so I was gonna say the prequel could be how Keating became the guy he is and what he kind of learned with his Dead Poets Society. As for sequel, hot take, I think there could possibly be okay, but hear me out, okay. Obviously, Dead Poets Society is still there technically. The Dead Poets Society still exists. So I was thinking not following these kids, but I was thinking kind of what's the word? Like repeating itself in that a couple years in the future, Todd comes back, right, as a teacher and like does the whole Robin Williams spiel again. It would be very repetitive, I understand. But I do think that like there are movies like that make it work, like stuff like what's that? But there's movies that make it work where someone comes back and just does the same thing older. I have a movie in my head. I think it was Rocky, yeah, because the Apollo Creed whole thing. That's what Creed is about. It's basically now Rocky's the teacher, and I really do think it could work out. Not maybe to the same effect, because
truth be told, Ethan Hawke's just not as good as actor as Robin.
Yeah,
Williams.
I don't really think anyone can replace Robin Williams. If you've seen Aladdin, Will Smith did a great job, but it's no Robin Williams. He's a great actor. It was a great performance, but no one could really replace. But in terms of prequel, yeah, Sujay's completely right. You could definitely do one with Robin Williams. Sequel, that's my hot take. It might work, it might not work, it might be really repetitive, but you could definitely, especially with all the new reboots that are happening now, I would definitely see it being made. Should it be made? Maybe. If you get the right actors, I think you could really make it work, especially with the new kids coming up, like the It kids. Those kids are really good actors. But if you get the right cast, I think you can make it work.
In my opinion, I don't think like any prequels or sequels, especially the ones that they make now, like are beneficial at all. And like a movie as good as this one stands on its own, and that's what makes it so good. And like, cause we already know like how Keating's time at the school went. Like he described it in the movie. Like obviously they could go in depth in it, but like we already know sort of how it went. And like Girish said, if they just came back and did the same thing in a few years with one of the kids, we already know how most of it would go. And like that's just a prop to the movie. Like it describes things so well that you don't need any other amount of information to yeah. I don't think any prequel or sequel would be good.
I agree with Will. I don't think that, like in a prequel, the only thing that I feel like they could have had would be more character development of the boys in the movie, but that's like definitely not its standalone movie. And maybe it would be cool to see like Robin Williams, Keating, whatever, like in the past, but then it would just you'd be comparing his, time in the Dead Poet Society to the current kids in the Dead Poet Society, and I just don't think that would have been. I think it would have been tangential to like the point of the movie. So I don't think a prequel would be good. I don't think a sequel would be good. I think it's just like a classic, and that's why.
Yeah, no, definitely it should be left alone. And this kind of brings me to our next category: remake it. If this movie was remade today, like let's say they just did it, Hollywood's like, we've run out of ideas, we need to remake Dead Poet Society like now. Yeah. What do you think would change about that movie? So I thought like the themes itself could stay the same, like Carpe Diem, that whole concept. Obviously you can't have Keating because there's no Robin Williams.
Probably get a few women in there, some minorities maybe.
That's another thing. Okay, like this takes place in a 1950s like all white boarding school,
which still exists today.
Yeah, like it's a prep school.
Yeah, what are you defending your people?
I'm
not defending them. I just, if they did remake the movie exactly how they made it back then, it would still be a legitimate thing. Like would you make it a girls, like would you add girls to it too? Because like it is a boarding school, so there would only be. I guess my point is like it happens. There are still all white male schools, and it's white people. I was gonna say that, yeah. But it also happens to everybody else, and so I think that it would be important today to outline the fact that everybody feels this.
Yeah, here's the thing. I was gonna say you could remake it, like you guys said, like with you'd have to change the minority and stuff. But I think if you did that, that kind of changes. Like, okay, so here's the way I see it. Right, the reason they were all edged, they were in high school, right? So they were just a bunch of guys in high school, boarding school by themselves. They're probably really horny, as you can tell by literally.
Basically, the entire Knox storyline is defined by this.
Yeah, the whole
character of Nwanda is defined by this.
Yeah, like that's like part of the reason the Dead Poets Society, they have a bunch of pent up energy. They don't know what to do with it. They're like, let's write some fucking poetry.
This is not a good take.
No, so like but I do think that.
Did you say pornography? No poetry.
But no, so they really could, if they remade it, I'm sure they would try to do that, like add diversity and stuff. But I think if they did that, it would literally be a cash grab. It should, like, if I do agree that they should never remake the movie. Again, I said my sequel and prequel opinions earlier, but I would say that they should definitely not remake the movie. If they did, I think a lot of themes would be lost. Also, a thing with older movies when they're remade, some jokes don't age well. And I can't remember any off the top of my head. But yeah, Knox being a pervert. Just Knox's entire character in general.
Storyline should not have been there. But if they did remake it, I would insist that they have some type of diversity, because the whole reason why I didn't like the movie was because I personally felt alienated. Like,
okay, yeah, go finish.
Just like in engineering, I interact with white men all the time, and like everyone's a white man. So I just feel like, me personally, I'm sick of like that arrogant male energy. And I know that like at a boarding school, they're like, you gotta be all dudes or all girls. But like I don't know, like maybe it doesn't have to be boarding school. Maybe it can be college where like it's co-ed or something. But like I just could not watch that again, like remade. If it was the same thing, like all white men, like that's not interesting to me.
Yeah, just a real quick point going with that. I'm gonna be honest. Other than Neil and Todd, for like the first 30 minutes of the movie, I mixed up all the guys' names.
Oh yeah, they all look the same.
No, okay, yeah. So I was thinking about like casting if they remade it. I had two options for Keating, just because like no Robin Williams, so you can't do that anymore. But Steve Carell as Mr. Keating, what do you think?
I think he'd be funny. Like I guess I don't know if I've seen him in an inspirational role before. I'm sure he's
been in like serious movies. There's that one he did where he was I forgot what it's called, but
I
he can
think
play
he's a good
serious
actor.
roles. Like
Yeah.
he's not just like a comedian.
and he's funny. Yeah, I love that movie.
I think he's a really funny actor. The thing with Robin Williams though is like Steve Carell's a different kind of funny, you know? Like he's more of a lot of his funny moments come from him being, well, this is mostly from The Office, obviously, but like him being cringe, but not just in The Office. Like a lot of his other funny moments are him kind of slapstick comedy, you know? If I would not completely, but that's mostly what I know him for. So, and I think Keating, I don't think Keating's not a comedian in the movie, but
I'd argue he kind of is. Like every scene that he does with the kids, it's inspiration in top of comedy. Like
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm pretty sure Robin Williams was like a comedian too, wasn't he?
no,
Yeah.
he was a comedian. I'm saying I don't think Steve Carell is serious enough to do some of the roles.
I think that he's proven that he can do serious roles, and I would also say that this isn't a serious role. It's more of like, for me, it's like the importance of this role is being able to be genuine and like
Accessible to you.
yeah, and speak with like a soft voice, kind of. It's just like
it's so specifically written for Robin Williams that it's hard to put.
But I
else in the
think that
role,
Steve
but-
Carell is capable of acting in almost the exact same way as, I mean, maybe not as well as Robin Williams was, because who knows if anyone could do it as well as Robin Williams did, but
no one can.
but he has almost the exact same background in.
So yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. I see Steve Carell as one. This might just be because I haven't seen as many Steve Carell. Like I think I've seen a lot more of Steve Carell being serious, but I think the one, I don't know if you have two. This might be your second one. I'm not sure yet. I think Bill Hader would be really good.
Bill Hader?
That's my second one, and hear me out. He's okay. First off, Bill Hader, probably one of the funniest people. One of the best comedians, honestly, in my opinion. But I think the movie that really kind not. I think him in if you guys have seen you've seen it too. Yeah. But him growing up in that movie, I'm not gonna spoil it, but there's some very serious scenes in that movie that I think he does a great job of capture. Like his whole character in that movie is just guy being funny, but also like shit, like there's a clown, like it's life and death, and I think that's very similar to what's kind of in Dead Post. Not life and death seriously, except for that one scene, but I think he does a great job with that.
See, my thing with Bill Hader is that like I think it should be like an older person, like someone like Bill Hader's pretty young, I think, and like there's a certain wisdom about like those characters, like especially like I think Steve Carell's like gotten that the old person look now. Like I think he's the age that Robin Williams was when he made this. Maybe a little bit older now. He's in his like 50s or something. But
Can I guess your second guy? I just want to guess.
Okay, sure, go.
Is it Tom Hanks?
Oh, that's a good one, actually. I didn't. Yeah, that was not mine. I was okay. Honestly, I was thinking about the diversity angle. If they made Mr. Keating black, like honestly, like the
Not a woman though. Not a woman.
No, of course not. God forbid. Because like I think the male boarding school is like a staple in this movie. Like I'm sorry, Kellyanne, but I don't think they could recreate the same like themes and plot wise. Because like it is true what I think Girish said, that like they kind of just do this dumb shit because like it's only guys and there's no voice of reason to say let's not go to a cave.
Kellyanne is the voice of reason in our group. We were about to name our dynamics project Easy Money Sniper, and Kellyanne refused to write sniper on a school project.
But yeah, if we're gonna go with the
Wait, let me guess again.
Okay, this is a diversity hire. Keep in mind, they got an African American gentleman to play Mr. Keating, who is it?
Idris Elba.
That's a good one. But I don't know if Idris Elba has the same like I don't want to say like capture, but like he's just not like.
To me, the most important thing about his character is like if I were watching this person, this actor, And yeah, and
Oh,
there was
okay.
and there's a tender moment in the movie. I don't want to feel like I want to feel comforted by his character.
Yeah, he has to be
Not-
approachable. Yeah.
not serious or funny or anything like that. I want to feel like comfortable with him.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and say it. It was
Morgan Freeman.
no. That was I was thinking about it, but I think Morgan
No.
Freeman's a little bit
Can
too
he?
like.
Can he even act anymore? He can only do voiceovers at this point.
I said James Earl Jones.
I was thinking that, but
Yeah. He has a comforting like.
he does. When he smiles, it's
yeah,
like,
it's it's genuine.
he's a genuine guy. Yeah.
But I was kind of just thinking about African American people at that point. Like I literally looked up like top 50.
I don't
black
think I would
actors.
like him in the role. I see where you're going, but I don't think I would really like him in the role.
All right, I said all right. Moving on though, for any of the young kids, I said it really didn't matter. Take any of the young white male actors they have, like the Dave Francos, the Tom Hollands of the world. Like
Tom Holland would be good. Tom Holland is Neil, dude. That's a perfect cast.
Yeah, I don't know. There's plenty of guys for that.
all right, next category. This is who did it better. So I'm just gonna say what movie everyone is thinking of. When I wrote this category,
You listeners out there.
the one that we're all thinking about, because when I wrote this category, I only had this movie in mind. So it's called Three Idiots. It's a Bollywood movie, and it's about three guys who go to an engineering college. Two of them are like really stressed about it, and the third one is kind of just encouraging them to relax, like study, but kind of study to learn, not just to cram for tests and stuff like that. And kind of he embodies the like carpe diem, like live life to the fullest type thing. So I want to go into like too spoilers of this territory, because we could do another episode on Three Idiots. So.
Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see Three Idiots in the next podcast.
But yeah, that's a movie I personally said it encapsulates the themes of Dead Poet Society and shows them through the lens of like just the students, not the teacher teaching them. So, and it tackles the issues of like depression, suicide a little bit better in my opinion. And they have so many different characters in that movie, and they kind of like develop all of them really well.
I think that the biggest difference to me between the two movies is kind of what you touched on about how Three Idiots is more towards the student's eyes, and just the fact that like there isn't really, unless I'm completely forgetting something, there isn't really like a Mr. Keating character in
the third Amir Khan. He's supposed to be. The difference is he's not the teacher. But
yeah,
like,
but it's different in that way because he's. It's almost it's like if Mr. Keating were the young Mr. Keating. It's like if this were the movie, this is how we think the movie about like the prequel would go, with Mr. Keating being in the school and
That's a good take.
he's like developing his character while being in school with his other like students around him, and he develops the Dead Poet Society. And
the whole point of Mr. Keating being being an adult is that like he's not supposed to be this way. Like he's supposed to be the strict person, but he's actually more with like the kids. And so it makes sense in Three Idiots because the main guy is a kid, but this is more of an impact because the teacher. Which brings me to my next thing, because I was going to say Three Idiots, obviously. But you two probably haven't seen this movie. But Sujay, okay, it's a Bollywood movie. It's called Tare Zameen Par.
Oh, actually, I've seen that movie.
It's a really good movie, all right? Base plot of what it is, there's this kid who has dyslexia, and nobody really knows. Like, they don't really know that. They just think he's stupid. And so they send him to a boarding school, and guess who the boarding school teacher is? It's Amir Khan, which is the same guy in Three Idiots, who's the same. He plays basically the same.
he's
thing.
in every Bollywood
He's in every
movie.
good Bollywood movie, but he's the teacher, and he is literally almost the same exact plot line, except this kid is first off he's in like elementary school or something, and also like he's more of trying to teach him like to learn what the differences, but he has literally the same exact feel of Robin Williams. Like he walks in on the first day. It's an Indian movie, so obviously he sings a song first. But he walks in on the first day, does some fun activity. He very much has a very Robin Williams type Mr. Keating character in that whole movie, and I think that's the only thing that was missing from Three Idiots. That was what I was gonna say, along with Three Idiots, because that's basically the same movie. But he kind of is the Indian Robin Williams in that movie.
One last thing I just wanted to get through was like for us, I feel like do we all like Three Idiots more?
Yeah.
I feel like
Obviously.
probably the biggest reason I like it more is just because of how much more personal it is towards me, because it's about kids in an engineering school, and that's exactly what we're doing. And like that's why I think if they remade any of these movies today, like the more diverse you can make the cast and the plot, the more relatable it is to everybody, because there's all different types of struggles out there. But the more relatable you can make it, the more people will like the movie. And I think that if everyone could like see how we see Three Idiots, I mean, it was an eye opener for me. Like it's a great thing to see and learn, and yeah, I think that'd be.
I
good
mean,
thing.
honestly, not to mention like the huge like overarching plot line of like the present, like while they're in the past, like that whole thing was cool too.
It's a well-made movie for sure.
That's our plug. So if you haven't seen Three Idiots,
It was also made like 25 years after.
yeah,
the
it was
Poets
made. Like, it was
Society.
pretty recent. I think it was only like 2009, I think.
So 20 years.
Yeah, but yeah. So actually, it was rated 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So
3 Idiots was
100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So,
Right up there next to Paddington 2. That's 100%. You can go check it.
but yeah. So if you haven't seen Three Idiots, that's our plug. Dropping into our next category, personal impact. So something about this movie? How does this change something that you have in your own life? So the one for me was very it was very obvious. I think for this movie was poetry. It definitely changed the way how I look at poetry. The way that Robin Williams uses it in all of his scenes is just really captivating. It's to the point where sometimes you can't even tell what's poetry and what's like just him talking. You guys agree, poetry?
Yeah. I guess because I think usually poetry sucks shit, and that's a hot take. But in this movie,
I'm kidding.
I was able to accept it and like appreciate it at parts. So it definitely, I don't know. It was just overall a romantic movie. It was like pretty and it flowed. It had, I don't know. So like the way that I took poetry from it and liking the poetry was the way that I kind of like looked at the rest of it. Like then it made me think like, okay, carpe diem, there's like more in that than just the 4 syllables, you know, like I can find that beautiful the way that I can find poetry beautiful.
So if you know me, actually this isn't, I don't know, but I actually really enjoyed poetry even before this movie. I didn't enjoy writing, because I know people like there's like a difference between reading poetry and writing poetry. I did not write, obviously, but I've always enjoyed, like I can always appreciate a good poem, like in terms of I can appreciate when I see like some of the older stuff, especially not old, but when there's people like people who professionally write poetry and stuff like that's beautiful, you know, in my opinion. So I kind of knew like going in like this was gonna have some fire. It's called Dead Poet Society, but I have some fire buzz in there, you know. But what I really took away from it was the whole carpe diem thing. Obviously like YOLO and stuff, but I think the way the movie portrayed it, especially with like it kind of was a way of showing like what happens when you really try to live life to its fullest and seize the moment. Like this is like worst case, okay, that's a bad example, but like worst case scenario for some of them, like he explained it to them, Robin Williams, in the movie. But like best case scenario, he was like, you can change your life. And I really think that was a great way of looking at it. So I think that was my main personal gain from this movie.
Question for you guys. Do you have any poems memorized? Because that is kind of the whole deal with poetry. Like you can read it, you can appreciate it, but until you have it memorized and know exactly when you're going to belt it out, it's kind of, do you guys have anything?
No, absolutely not.
I don't know if this is a poem. You mean just in general, not from the movie, right?
No, it's just like in general, a poem.
General? Okay.
Preamble to the Constitution.
Is that a poem?
No.
A sentence?
There once was a man in a... no, but in terms of poem, I don't have them word for word memorized, but there's a few. Okay, so again, Bollywood plug here. But there's a movie called was it Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara?
Okay. Zingle lady.
Flexing, but there's an actor in there.
All you dingleberries out there.
Anyways, back to my point. A couple poems I have not memorized, but like I took away them. I think for me, you can memorize a poem if you want. I think that's great. But for me, the
What
main
is this?
yeah. But I think for me the main thing was the message. And there's a poem in there, because the main character, like one of his things is like he writes poetry, but no one knows. It's like, oh, but one of the poems he writes is about like very similar themes to this, like the whole carpe diem thing. And it's about like only when you seize life. It actually is exactly carpe, but it's something along. It's a poem that's very similar to carpe diem, stuff like that. Like you have to see stuff by the moment. Another poem I have is again not memorized, but I don't even know if this is a poem. Do you guys remember that that little skit they did for us on orientation day about like tolerance. I don't think it was exactly, but
It was like spoken word.
the
or
one where it's like
something.
the first they came for them and I didn't speak
actually,
up because
I
it
know
wasn't
what
me.
you're
Yeah.
talking about. I don't think it's a poem. It's like the thing that they talked about with like World War II and the Hitler thing. It's like first they came for the Jews and they weren't. I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for these people and I wasn't there, so I didn't say anything. And at the end, it's like
No one said anything for me.
yeah, because no one was left.
Yeah.
But
that's a problem. I don't know if that's a poem, but that's something I very clearly remember. You know.
yeah, I was gonna say that I actually do have a poem memorized.
What's your poem?
So I'll give you the origin story. This is a poem that I heard, I think, when I was 8 or 9, and it came from the show Arthur for kids, like you know, in the aardvark.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember the context of why they had this poem in the episode. I think like they were watching a baseball team or something, and the baseball team sucked, and it only sucked whenever like the kid, like Buster, like came to like watch them. So he thought that like they
He's a
sucked
bad luck
because
charm.
of him. Like
Yeah.
like it was like he was like a curse or something.
Fuck you, Buster.
Yeah. So he. Oh my god, I remember why. Like he came to the grocery store of all places and saw 3 of the baseball players on the team there. And they were like, "Are you coming to the game?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm the curse." And he's like, "You can't believe in that stuff." And he's like, "Why?" And then he says the poem. So the poem is Hope by Emily Dickinson. It goes, "Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." It's just the first stanza. I think there's more to it, but that's all I have memorized. And I don't know why, but that was a really good poem, especially when they used it in the episode. Like, it comes out of nowhere, too. Like,
Yeah.
he's just sitting there in the grocery store talking to the baseball players. And then
these kids are quoting him.
kids,
like
kids belting out
Dickinson.
Dickinson. So, like, I've memorized that for, like, 10 years now. But, like, I really liked it. And I
Yeah,
think if
it's
I had
pretty.
a poem memorized, that'd be mine.
Yeah. No, I don't have one, but I'll steal it. So
All right. Moving on to our last 2 categories. So this is kind of like the our namesake at Overrated, most underrated and most overrated moments. So most underrated, something that we liked from the movie that most people don't talk about or you don't think people talk about enough. I'm gonna say that mine was Charlie Dalton. He's the most underrated for me. Nwanda. I don't think people give him enough credit for standing up for Keating. He was honestly the first person to stand up for Keating. He was the guy who said, "I'm not going to sign this thing that's like saying that Keating was like at fault." He's the one person who actually didn't sign it, and he punched Cameron and got expelled for it. So I think people don't give him enough credit for standing up for Keating.
yeah,
Like,
he was like the Draco Malfoy. Like
Yeah.
he's like
Draco
shitty, but like is he though?
I would say, okay, hot take here. I don't think any part of this movie is underrated, so to say. In that, I think if anything, there's some parts that are overrated. Roll
well,
credits.
that was the next category.
Yeah, but I will say I don't think there's any underrated moments because I think that's I don't think that's an underrated scene.
No, but how many people have you heard about that talk about Charlie Dalton as the hero of the movie?
Yeah.
Everyone just
No
shits on him
one's
because
doing
he's
that.
like the bad boy who
Yeah.
like gets like kicked out because of, like he's just being a dick. But
I see what you're saying, I guess. But for me, I think everything in this movie, I think a lot of scenes like you could I guess I'm just probably not thinking about it right, but I think any scene in this movie, if you told me, I'd be like, yeah, that's a great scene, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way. If anything, I'd say an underrated scene was probably just, I guess his character. I don't know. I don't really think there's an underrated scene in this movie. I think everything is aptly rated, you know.
I do feel like it's a critically acclaimed movie, so like I think it gets its due. I think Knox's character is underrated for how shitty he is and how rapey his behavior
I think
is.
you're confusing that with Overrated.
I don't think that is rated enough in how poorly he acted.
I can tell Kellyanne really wants to get to Overrated portion, so I'm gonna say the last 2 things I had for underrated.
Okay.
I said so underrated doesn't mean just like stuff that you don't like you think is good and other people don't think is good. It can also be things that people don't talk about enough. I think Keating's mannerisms is one of them. When he whistles 1812 Overture when he enters the room, that's a pretty cool moment. I don't think I've heard a lot of people talk about that. It's like he just enters the room, he starts whistling, and then he leaves the room and he keeps whistling. And he's like, "Come on, guys!" Like, and that's pretty cool. And he keeps whistling 1812 Overture throughout the entire movie. So I think that's pretty cool. The way he like looks at the boys, the way he talks, the way he walks, like all of that stuff. It's just so like that character that like I associated so much with Keating. Yeah. I also said how good the villains are in the movie. The head of the school like was really well done. Like you actually hate this dude.
That's true.
Neil's dad.
I hate that guy.
Yeah. I didn't realize Neil's dad was also the dad from '70s show. Like until I watched it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that completely changes how you see the '70s show now. But yeah, also Cameron, the guy who like finked on Mr. Keating. That guy was also like he was literally just like looking out for himself, and he reminds me of Silencer from Three Idiots. But yeah, those were my most underrated. So here we go. Last category, namesake of our show, overrated. What is the most overrated thing? Something you didn't like from the movie that you think everyone else loves. I know Kellyanne's about to say this, so I'm going to let her go first, actually.
Well, yeah, so Knox should, I mean, he thinks he's in love with her, and he's, like, literally spoken to her once. Like, what the hell's up with that? So that's, I guess, overrated.
Yeah, if anyone deserves to be Me Too'd, it's Knox.
Yeah, like, fuck that guy. But also, when he says carpe diem or says that like write your verse, what is your verse going to be? Yeah, I think that's overrated. I think it's cliche, and I acknowledge that probably in 1989 when people were watching this, like that was a significant thing to hear. But I feel like we hear that all the time now. Like it just doesn't feel special to be like it's just another way of saying make your mark, and I hear that all the time, in inspirational shit. So for me, that's overrated, and that I could tell like they were trying to hit it home with like what will your verse be, and then the audience was like holy shit, like what will my verse be? So yeah, that's overrated for me.
Yeah, what you have to understand though is like I think this is one of the first movies to have this like whole theme that students are like independent people. Like this movie was made in the 80s, but it was set in the 50s. So like all the adults who are watching this movie at that time went through something like this probably, because I mean public school system was pretty bad back in the day, I
guess. But again, they're all white men, so
true.
They knew that the world was theirs more than ever.
That's a really good point. That like
no one was telling them that they couldn't do shit.
That was actually that was probably what I was gonna say for overrated moment. The fact that they didn't really cover how it's just white men, and the whole fact. I mean, not to take away from the movie and stuff. But like,
I'll take away from it.
Like, Robin Williams couldn't do this shit if he wasn't white. Like,
Yeah,
like you know what I'm saying though,
not
right?
A black man in the building.
Yeah.
Much less a woman.
Yeah, yeah. But that was kind of, I mean, not taking away from the performance or like the importance of the character in any way. But I do think it is not overrated, but it's overlooked fact. That's what I'd say.
Okay, are we done with the Knox plot line?
Yeah, we can be done with it.
He was like, okay, like there's the multitude of things he does. First, like, if you don't remember who Knox and his plotline was, he's the guy who first went to dinner at like his parents' friend's house or something, meets a girl, literally has that one dinner with them, and like comes back to his friends. He's like, I love her.
I'm in love.
I'm in love with her.
I've seen the most beautiful
Truthfully,
woman.
this might be the first girl he's ever talked to.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, okay.
They go to an all-boys school.
But then she invites him to a party later, and then while she's like passed out, he kisses her. And like her boyfriend understandably gets mad and like punches him, and you're supposed to like side with Knox here, like that he was kind of justified there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you don't touch a woman while she's like unconscious. You don't touch anyone while they're
and what's
unconscious.
stupid is like she defends him, like she's like, don't do it,
He's
and
fine,
he's like,
and that's just like 50s, like like I just could, no.
And then later in the movie, he comes back with the girl, and he's like, all right, like you want to go out? And she's like, no, Knox, like you fucking like sexually harassed me. And he's like, I love you though. And she's like, you know what? Let's give this a chance.
That's good enough. Like that's not good enough for me.
And what's the stupidest is you never even get closure from this whole Knox plot line.
Absolutely
like
no development.
He takes her to Neil's play, and then he just doesn't like. There's no after that. Like what happened?
Yeah,
like
they hold
granted,
hands.
Neil kills
he grabs
himself.
her hand.
So yeah. So
I don't know. Yeah, I hated
like,
it. I think that they weren't developed at all. It was completely out of nowhere that he was into her. He sexually harassed her, and then like he grabs her hand, and then I get the whole point. Like she just acquiesces. Like at that point, she's just like, okay, I can't fend him off anymore. Yeah. No, that's canceled for me.
Yeah. All right. Next, but Knox though. Another overrated thing. I said the whole Charlie God scene was not my cup of tea. Like I understood the point of it was to show the dangers, I guess, of Keating's teachings. And if anything, if Keating were to get fired on that alone, that would be justified, because he basically told the kids like, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But that
like
whole
in the dining hall area.
yeah, like when Charlie's like, like, oh hey, God is calling. There should be girls at Welton.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing.
Yeah.
I think
That's
like
not a badass move. Like
yeah,
that's
that was just
you're
stupid.
being an asshole.
Yeah, and like going back to Kellyanne's point, like the kids just like the boys especially just seem super cocky and like I bet he thought in his mind that was super funny
Yeah.
and it wasn't. And if that was what they were trying to get across, like well done. Like he seemed like a genuine asshole, but yeah. All right, my last overrated point, and this is I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I think that if you're an English teacher and you try to be like Keating, you're super overrated.
That's true.
Personally, I've had a lot of teachers. I'm not gonna say any names, but that tried to be like Keating. Like they tried to be like super deep and stuff in their teachings. And I think there's just a big difference between being inspirational and trying to be inspiring. Like you can't just come to class and like say like, okay, like this is your day. Like you can make whatever you want of it. Like
yeah, like you got to earn respect first. You can't go in as
Yeah.
Keating the character. You've got to be like professor whoever and like make me want to be like you.
yeah, and like honestly, it's only like subjects like I don't understand like humanities too much,
Liberal
but
arts.
it's only subjects like English where you can do shit like this. Like if you
Yeah.
were a math professor and you came in and you're like, all right guys, like we're gonna do some calculus today, but we're also gonna figure out what life's about.
Yeah,
Like,
no one's ever done that.
like, no one's gonna be like,
There's no
like
interpretation.
dude, I'm just trying to patch my text next week. Like
What's the chain rule?
yeah, like that's honestly like that's my only thing.
Yeah.
You guys have teachers like that.
I guess all English teachers to some extent feel like
Honestly,
they're
yeah,
trying
like-
to be too.
And to be
Much.
fair, this is the movie for English teachers. Like, there's not another movie about like English teachers. I guess there's movies about teachers in general being inspiring, but like I heard someone else say that this is kind of like the sports movie for humanities majors. Like this is like the home run like inspirational movie for them. So I guess like
Yeah, if they need that to feel badass,
yeah.
like they can have it.
all right. You guys have any
3 Idiots is
last
for engineers.
overrated stuff?
No,
Again.
mine is like the whole movie.
Yeah. Oh Jesus. I watched this movie a long time ago. I was not there at family movie night, so I'm sorry about that. But no, I don't remember much. I do remember Knox's poovy ass, but other than that, yeah, I like the movie. Again, I think it was aptly rated. There's probably a couple scenes that are overrated a little, like, but that's again a product of the time, I think. But I really have no further opinions on this.
I concur.
All right, well, I guess then we can wrap it up. This has been our episode of Overrated. We hope you enjoyed it. Yeah. Carpe diem.
Carpe diem, baby.
Carpe diem, boys.
Seize that day.